Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome to the Chicken Box. It's another good day. Maybe you never heard of that word, but if you're in Baltimore, you have definitely heard that word because that's four nice wings, fries, salt, pepper, ketchup, some hot sauce. But this is the place where you speak your truth. And it's powered by the Afro American newspaper, over 132 years of informing, inspiring, and educating around the world. I have a colleague of mine, maybe new to the screen, Jay Jackson. How are you today, sir?
I'm good, sir. How are you, Kevin?
Good, good. That's impeccable to you. But anyway, we
Yeah.
just met,
Okay.
Jay.
Okay.
Anyhow, look, I'm excited about today's topic, but Jay joins us. He's our social media director. I don't know. There's so many titles, but we're glad to have you on the team. And he also is a podcaster, so it works wonderful uh, to have him on. And you know what? We got a lot of women at the Afro. It's good to have some more men uh, here at the Afro American newspaper. But we have Jay. Let me give you 30 seconds to just kind of share your background, and
Sure.
then we'll get right into it.
Okay. So my background is mostly in podcasting and sort of media work. I've been doing that since 2011. So I joined the Afro just recently in the last couple of months and doing social media work and obviously this sort of work with podcasting and interviewing as well. So I am very happy to be here with Impeccable and I look forward to this conversation today.
Absolutely. Let's get right into it. And if you missed it, we had the Black Business Matters conference a couple weeks ago, and it was fantastic. And then, man, we've just been having guests on and topic after topic, just things that you wouldn't think about. We're not doing the foolishness. We're not doing the TikTok. This is Afro News. We are a legitimate source. But the chicken box sounds kind of like it should be TikTokish, but it's just a play on words. It's just a platform for you to speak your truth. And today we are speaking our truth on DEI. I'm going to get into what it is if you're not sure what it is. If you just popped in and you say, what in the world is DEI? Is it not DIY? It's all of these letters that have now popped up into the space. I think before we get on, I think Dr. Draper may have joined us as well. Dr. Draper, how are you? That's the CEO of the Afro. Mic check, mic check.
Mic check, mic check. My my voice is a little raspy, so I might be doing more listening than talking.
All right. Well, welcome to the show. We're getting right into it. We're going to invite our special guest, Robyn Murphy, from the CEO of JRM Consultancy. How are you, Robyn? Welcome to the Chicken Box.
Hello, happy Thursday. It's good to be
Happy
here.
Thursday. The ladies come outside. The fellas are inside. The ladies are outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it still spring? It's almost summer, right?
Today feels a lot like summer. It is still spring though.
See, Robyn, that's not fair, Robyn, because I'm thinking that's the background, but of course, earlier I saw you throw a rock in that pool, so I know it isn't. It is a real pool behind us. But let's get into it. Let me just before we start, let me just give you a few seconds just to introduce yourself, your company, and what you do, and then we're going to get into DEI and the meaning of it, and just what has been transpiring over the last few years in this space. Is that good, Robyn?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, perfect.
So my company, JRM, we focus on DEI and belonging, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging for companies, organizations who want to center equitable messaging. And so there's a lot of different spaces in the DEI world, and we will come in and a lot of companies come to us because they want to center diverse partnerships. I tell a lot of companies that in these days, a big company will want to be more closely connected to the community, but the community has its own voice, the different communities you speak to. So I often try to talk to companies about, but what's your street cred, right? Like, do you even have enough credibility for someone that is already implanted in the community to want to work with you? Because it's a two-way street, which is kind of why I actually don't really like to use the word outreach because it sounds like it's a one-way street. It's like Big Brother wants to come in and like outreach to you, but no, it's definitely a two-way street, and that's where the equitable part comes in. So we work with I work with Black-led run organizations on how to get more shared space in this world, and then I'll also work with mainstream and white organization. A lot of times I work with them on flat out crisis communications because they've hired me because they've already done something wrong or that they should not have done.
Fair enough.
And then sometimes I'll get a client because an organization or a corporation has decided to refine their mission, and which is what you should do in your strategic planning process over the years. And once they refine their mission, they realize that the part of inclusion that they want to add in, they want to figure out how to make it resonate and be sustainable within their company. And so they'll bring me in to help them with a little bit of mission refining as it relates to actually doing what you say you want to do in your mission. And so I'll work with them on that. And then finally, sometimes I'm hired solely by companies who are going through board of directors, board of trustee transitions. I've had more companies that I care to count come to me and say that they can't find any women or any people of color that are qualified to join their board. And I'm like, where have you been looking? And it turns out nowhere. And so I'll come in and help them to have their board of directors and board of trustees more accurately reflect the company's mission and goals and the demographics of the place where they are.
Wow. Guys, if you just tuned in, this is this week's Chicken Bar. We have CEO Robyn Murphy. Murphy, are you know the Afro family name is Murphy. Are you related?
I know. I co-opted as needed.
All right. You fit right in.
I am married to a Murphy, but I can't tell you the number of times that I am confused with the Murphy family that is part of the Afro.
Well, you're now part of the Afro family because you're on the Chicken Box. So welcome to the family. Don't just go in there with the name and just walk proud, and it'll all work.
Exactly. It's a very proud name.
Absolutely. Jay, one of our newest host or co-host on the show. Jay, what comes to mind when you heard just a little bit of what Robyn was talking about?
Well, there's diversity, equity, and inclusion, and belonging, as you added, which I think is a powerful word to add at the end of that. That's sort of, it was such a big push over the last number of years into sort of corporate America, especially sort of white-owned corporate America. So it's your work, I think, is incredibly important, obviously. Do you see this idea of these corporations that you work with? Do you see a future where DEI is such a prioritized aspect of their business, where it's not just, hey, oh my God, we messed up, but this idea of like from the ground up sort of dealing, working with companies like you, just straight up the bottom.
Sadly, I think that that DEI has become in mainstream corporate America a bad word, and that has set back diversity efforts. And so one of the things that I always walked into companies with is trying to disarm them from feeling as though prioritizing having a diverse workspace and diversity of thought, right, disarming them from thinking that it's something that they're being forced to do, and that it is because it feels like then you're doing it begrudgingly. And so a lot of companies have been allowed to be, bullied politically into prioritizing diversity. And so that's wild to me, right? Because if you actually don't look at diversity as something that is, you otherwise wouldn't be doing it, then that's bizarre in the first place, right? It should just be, and I have a couple of companies that I use as strong examples that they have just threaded belonging and inclusion in the fabric of their company. So if you thread it within the fabric of your company, there is no issue. There is no issue with this. So we're in a weird space. Like, 2020 was such a reckoning. It was such a strong reckoning for treating Black people with, I think when we look back in the lens of history at significant moments in civil rights, then 2020 will be a part of that. What subsequently, like along with like 1955 and 1965, like 2020 will definitely be one of the years that we look at that where a leap in the civil rights movement happened, Black Lives Matter and all the things, George Floyd. The problem is that we are so oversaturated with media right now that it has given voice to even the most wild, right-wing, weird, outlandish positions and given them space to exist. So now that they have space to exist, it has allowed for organizations to feel intimidated by their diversity actions. And it's kind of been sad to watch. So I've had companies that before wanted to write strongly worded equity initiatives into their everything, that now are like, is there a way we can say it without really saying it? Because
yeah. I actually, it's funny. I have something written down I wanted to ask you that touches on that. If you don't mind, I just quickly bring this up. So there was a 2023 survey of 375 members of Association of Corporate Citizenship Professionals, and they basically, it's like 250 companies or something, and 9% of them reported wanting to, or excuse me, 60% of them reported wanting to change their DEI language after sort of what you're talking about, which is this like sort of bullying from the right, and sort of 9 reported an actual decrease in wanting to use these efforts. So I was interested. And then there's also, like, not to go too far into it, but like state legislation, legislatures that are actually passing things to stop this from happening in schools and things like that. So I guess my question to you is, how do you, as this sort of boutique consultancy, as you call it, like, how do you guys deal with, okay, this is happening, but let us not get discouraged? How do you push through that? And like, what are your methods of still getting your message out there?
I love that question. And it's true what you said. Again, one of the things I try to do is disarm companies from feeling like that they are going to implement equitable practices at the expense of something or someone else, because it's not an either or, it's a yes and. And so if you could convince more companies that efforts to make, a safe space internally for your employees is not a bad, it's like, okay, just, do the thing, right? It would be the equivalent of like, having, and this really was a thing. Like you had large corporations in the 60s and early 70s that would be 15-story buildings and one ladies' room and the rest, and a men's room on every floor. And the reason was because, like, why were women coming into the workplace? This is very intrusive. Why are they here? Right. So if you were a woman, you had to go down 15 flights just to use the restroom, right? So, like, what harm was done by making a restroom for women on every floor? Zero harm was done, right? So that's what I try to, like, bring people to think, like, you figuring out how to have an inclusive and fair practice for your internal employees. It should not be, you should want the best out of your employees. You should want them to come to work feeling their best as their best selves, so they give their best selves. So that's part of it from an internal standpoint. A lot of the company, some of the nonprofits that I work with, where they struggle on their board level is that, quite frankly, a lot of nonprofits do really good work, but they have a white savior complex, right? And so then they really want, they're pouring in, but when we started diversifying their boards and then the CEO answers up to the board, I found that having a voice at the table that was a woman or a gay person or a trans person, or or even in some cases like a younger person. Like a lot of boards are so old and white, it's not even funny. Like you're having people, they're old, white, and male. So you're having people literally die off of your board, and you're trying to replace them with another 77-year-old white guy. Like what? So we often talk about, like, you're losing because your board is not, number one, it's not representative of the community you serve, but you're afraid to add other voices into the mix because we're ingrained in this place of let's tell them what to do. Let's tell them what to do and not listen to what we can all do. And so that happens a lot. I'll say this. Most of the companies that I work with, though, even the ones that like make really tragic PR mistakes and then want to fix it through crisis communication by hiring me. By the way, most of those firms already have a PR team or person, but once they've done something so offensive to a particular community, they need somebody externally, because if your internal people could have done this, that messaging would have never gotten out. Exactly. So that's funny in and of itself, because I'll meet with a company and they'll be like, we did this thing, it was horrible, help us fix it. And then I'll sit with their PR team and they literally all look alike, sound alike, and have thought alike. And that's where having no diversity is actually to your detriment. And I say that about businesses, and I use the example of, you ever watch a commercial and be like, not a single Black person was in that room.
Yes, plenty of times.
Not when they conceptualized it, not when they wrote the script, not when they casted for it, not when they ran it through the test audience. And somehow it went through all those steps, from conceptualization to being on television in my house during the Super Bowl or whatever. And nobody caught that it was extraordinarily offensive to a particular group of people. And then you're backtracking like, we're so sorry, we didn't mean to say that. How did this happen? It happened because you did not have a diverse group of thought in the room.
Exactly. I think that idea of sort of corporate America assuming that diversity is obviously incredibly important, and diversity of background and of race and of gender and sexual orientation are all incredibly important, but it's not. I think it's often seen as sort of what is the sort of external thing that they see versus it actually, what you're looking for is a diversity of thought. All of those things that I just mentioned create a diversity of thought, right? A person who is from a different background of any of those that I named, and there are many others, it's a diversity of experience, it's a diversity of thought. That's where you miss as I often joke, it's the, like, you see a commercial or you see a TV show and it's like you said, there's not a Black person has been consulted. There's nobody they go, what do you think of this? And the Black person goes, don't do that. And there's nobody to do that, right? So I think your point is absolutely correct. So I was sorry, I just like kind of asked you two questions.
Well, no, I mean, if you guys if you just tuned in case you just came in and you're on the fly on the wall, we're talking about Black people versus DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which has been a buzzword in companies. And we have CEO Robyn Murphy joining us, who deals with a lot of crisis management, and she's getting a chance to not be controlled because she's on her own company, right? Because sometimes the DEI has to tiptoe based on the fear of being fired. So I'm looking at you. You like the Olivia Pope of DEI, huh?
That's what people say. That's what people say. I had a client that some of it, I'll give you a good example. I have two examples. One client, they're based in Baltimore, but they are in an extraordinarily conservative industry, but you're in Baltimore, so there's already this sort of like oppositional.
Is there Black Baltimore and white Baltimore, Robyn?
Not even just that, but if you're like if you're a conservative person in Baltimore, like I have a lot of Republican friends in Baltimore who vote Democratic, obviously in elections because there is no other choice, right? So they're going to vote Democratic in the local, in the city elections. They're going to figure out which Democrat they want, and then in the state election, they're going to go back and vote Republican, right? So there's just this thing that you have when you're in Baltimore specifically. So in this case, this client is a part of a national organization that the national organization endorsed Donald Trump in the first election. They endorsed him, and the local people went off and demanded that their local organization that hired me demanded that they separate from their national organization. And here's the thing, not necessarily because they disagreed with the national organization's position, but because it did not show up well in Baltimore, where these people need to exist, they need to work, they need to get clients, they need to get contracts. And so they came to me in crisis. They were like, our national organization just endorsed Donald Trump, and we want to distance ourselves from our national organization because this does not look good in Baltimore. Please help us message that. Which was right, which is hilarious, right?
I mean, let's dig into that a little bit. Let me see if Dr. Draper, I think, is back now. She's having some internet challenges. But
she looks like sitting next door to me.
Right, she does.
Yeah,
I think she does. I think it's still bad. You might need to get closer to the router. I'm gonna take you off for a second. So let's dig into that. Because first of all, this is what the chicken box is all about.
Yes.
We don't have to agree with everybody. And sometimes you think that if a person doesn't agree with your point, that they're the worst enemy that exists, right? Just because everybody doesn't quite always think alike.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it becomes that fine line, right? It's like, are you discriminating against me because I want to vote for this person?
Yeah.
Right.
And because I don't see it the way you see it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to live in a row house. You want to live in the suburbs, and I'm snubbing you because you want to live in the suburbs, right? So instead of living in the city,
yeah,
I think it kind of circles back to like the mindset of the company, like because mostly they don't wake up and think about Black people.
Well, correct. Here's the thing. Here's a universal truth. If you have a company that sells widgets,
mm-hmm.
the most important thing you want to do is sell a lot of widgets. And so you want to sell them to Black people, short people.
Like sometimes I remember when Tommy Hilfiger said he never made his products for Black people.
Right. Now sometimes
he never told them to buy it.
You just want to cut off your nose to spite your face. But by and large, folks, and guess what, Tom? That's fine too, folks that say that, right? But when people, by and large, most people just like, I just want to sell my widgets. I want to sell them to everybody. I think like one of the things like we don't realize there's a company that my husband uses all the time, and you probably use it. We all use it. Uline. You ever get the book from the big thick book, and any single thing you need in your office, anywhere, anytime is in there, from shelf to storage.
I'm sick of that book. Anyway,
I hate that book. It's so big, but it has every useful thing in it, right? When you peel back the layers and you look up Mr. Uline, the guy that owns the company, for everything you send, he's sending 1 cent to somebody that you would never vote for. He is a deeply conservative person. And it is, but he still wants to sell everything in that Uline book to you, to me, and to anybody that needs his products. So he tries to do it very quietly. And so if something doesn't align with someone politically, there are people who are like, it doesn't align with me. That company's morals and values doesn't align with me. I don't want to buy their product, which is also fair. The same way it's fair that this guy's saying every time you buy from me, I'm sending 2 cents to Donald Trump because I'm one of his biggest donors. And
so fair is fair, right?
So fair is fair.
Or is it?
That's the society we live in. right? That's the
Well, I mean,
society.
it takes away it takes away America, right? Because if they could be mad at the Afro because we want to write about the good news and the good story
That part.
in our community,
Yep.
but, you know, so does the Jewish Times, and so does some of the other places. Then it's mainstream papers that should cover everybody. But what's stopping somebody from being a niche? It's not saying we don't love all people. We love all people, but we are bringing the spotlight and the good news on our people, because if you just look through the news, it's no inclusion. And sometimes we want them to include us, and we don't need them to include us.
Right.
Sometimes we just need to be included in our mindset that we are already there. So, all right, DEI guys, let's break it down. Texas, I read, said later for DEI, they voted it, they put it on the ballot, and they were like, "We are done with this."
Isn't that weird? Because
it seems like another country. If you've been to Texas, they're a whole nother country.
But what that's saying is that they approached DEI as something that was painful and
manipulative.
And it was they are approaching it from a standpoint of they're only doing something because they're being forced to.
It's like a set aside, a handout, or something else. Another thing that they got to do for these Black people that they don't want to do.
And this is what's crazy. I in another situation we had I'll give their name in this case. Baltimore Center Stage used to have a apprenticeship program in theater, which was on paper amazing, right? You could spend an entire summer from May to September. They have housing, so you don't pay for your housing. You move to Baltimore and you work in a theater for the entire summer. You could be the marketing apprentice. So it wasn't just for actors or you could be a marketing apprentice. You could be a CFO apprentice. You could be a producing apprentice. You could be a costume designer apprentice, all the things. So 20 people would converge on Baltimore and live here for, in fact, I think it was a year. It was like a school year long thing. The bottom line is this. After peeling back the layers of the equity of the apprenticeship program, mostly wealthier white kids can afford to not work for a whole year and have an apprenticeship. So we were excluding at Center Stage a big population of people because an apprenticeship program that on its face looks wonderful, actually by definition of the way that most Black kids go to college and the definition of the way that many white kids go to college, we were excluding people who were like, I'm sorry, I have to get a full-time job every summer because otherwise I can't even afford to come back to school.
Right.
And so they had to revise the criteria by which they were giving the apprenticeships away and the fee structure, because it favored people who already were starting life on second base.
Right.
And
who technically don't even need an internship to get into.
Don't even need an internship. Yeah. And the weird part, so then you look at recent graduates, and that person's resume will have so much relevant career experience on it because they were able to do it for free or at a discount. And you'll have an extraordinarily qualified, summa cum laude Black kid whose only experience is every summer they worked at Taco Bell full time so that they could continue to go to school. And then that puts you at a disadvantage to get the job when you get out of college, right? So these are the ways that I think that a state like Texas deciding that there will be no thought on equitable outcomes is just another way of widening generational differences in people of color versus white people.
I mean, it is, it's one of those things that is deeply fascinating, this idea of seeing diversity and equity and inclusion and belonging. I want to keep remembering to say that for you. I think it is deeply fascinating in a detrimental perspective that they see it as sort of this like pizza pie kind of thing, right? It's like there's only so many slices. And once we fill that up, once we divide it up by 16, that's look, you either get in or that's or that's it. When in reality, it's an unlimited table, right? That has tons of places for seats, and somebody sitting next to you doesn't remove you from the table, type of thing, right? And I think if people stop thinking about it as such a finite, like equality is such a finite thing, or these level of diverse voices as such a finite thing, then I think when people say, oh, okay, the more people I have in, the better. I mean, corporate America, for instance, loses billions of dollars because of how limited they are in their scope of the people that they hire and things like that. And they go, well, why didn't we think of that? And this other small business thought of that. I don't know, probably because they're actually hiring people from the group that you're trying to sell your widgets to, or that you have this entire aspect of this business that you're just missing, that you have blinders on. I mean, I think about, like razor companies that completely missed the ball, and then Bevel came out, and it's like, why are they doing so well? Because you ignored this entire block, and now they've become a huge corporation. So it's just interesting that they
anti-DEI at its core, like if you are literally vocally anti-DEI at its core, is just racist, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah, it is.
It is built on the notion that Black people, because when they want to be anti-DEI, they're very specifically focused on Black people. It's not really women. I'm a woman too. I get it. It's not necessarily women that they're concerned about. It's people that look like me and you guys. It's racist because it presupposes that, but for you having a diversity initiative, we would not be qualified to do the thing. That's it in its entirety. Is the belief of people who think, they hear the word diversity and they think an unqualified Black person is going to move me out of the space. And so, and that's the part I can't get with, is that you're just assuming that I'm not the most qualified person anyway, but maybe my name is Lakeisha and you didn't pick up my resume.
100%. 100%.
Lakeisha was really the smartest lady in the room.
The smartest one in the room. Right. But that's what I'm saying. You can discard us on mere things like having a Black name and not pick up the phone to call me for it, and that's okay. But if I get hired, it's because diversity is the only reason I'm here. And so that's why it's very challenging for someone to be like, we're just not going to have diversity. And then a lot of it has fallen further into, I don't know, pulling books off of shelves or not wanting to teach certain things. Like, we're going to teach about the Negro Leagues, but we're not going to mention why there was a Negro League.
Right, exactly. And then we'll add their statistics in, but let's not talk about it too much. Right. Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing. It's like there is a book about Jackie Robinson that they wanted pulled off of shelves in Florida schools because it mentioned the racism that he faced in Major League Baseball when he integrated it. And so it's like let's forget that it happened. Let's not talk about that it happened. And that's going to make us more homogenous. And homogeny is horrible. It's horrible.
Right. Well, because it's not true to what the country says it wants to be, right?
Correct.
This idea of, I know often it's said, oh, it's a melting pot, but that's not what it actually should be, right? It's more like a salad with a bunch of different things in it, right? Right. It shouldn't just be
like in my house, it's a salad because one person doesn't want tomatoes and the other person doesn't want onions, and I've wound up making 3 salads. Right,
exactly. There you go. It's a perfect
example. And then all of a sudden, like, it used to be a time when here was the food.
I told my daughter that yesterday.
You're hungry. You're going to eat this.
We did.
There you
and
go.
if you're not hungry, and if you don't like this right here, here's the kitchen right here.
No, my daughter she walked in, asked me what was I cooking last night, and immediately went to DoorDash. And I was like, yo, that's not how it works. I just had to eat the baked chicken.
Well, That's a whole nother show.
That's another show.
We're gonna get into it, but these kids think they need the DEI too in the house. There's no DEI. It should be DWIS. Do what I say. That should be the thing until you can pay some bills. That's gonna be the next show. But listen, if you just tuned in, this is the Chicken Box with special guest CEO of JRM Consultancy, Robyn Murphy, who's now part of the Afro family. We're talking about DEI, and just a shameless plug, the Afro is the oldest family-owned Black media company in the country, over 132 years old, and we've been diverse the whole time. If you look back, we've never shut our doors to another person. It's can you get the job done? You know what I mean? At the end of the day. But a lot of people have shut the door. And so we've been owned and managed and not controlled. So that's why we can get on even this platform, which if they want to, they can shut this platform down and cancel all your friends. But we have a website. We're trying to bring everybody now to the stream, but we use the platforms that are here. But if you wouldn't mind, go to afro.com. Get a subscription. You mentioned Uber Eats or DoorDash. For less than 2 DoorDashes, you could have a digital subscription for $40 for the whole year. So
you can get the print and the digital for $80 for a whole year. I saw that special.
You know what? You are now on the board of the chicken box. Dr. Draper is mobile today. She is all over the place looking for Wi-Fi. We're gonna need Wes to light up the whole state so that it's hot. Dr. Draper, you are still frozen. Okay. If you have a question, type it in the chat. I can't believe you're still frozen. Anyway, Robyn, we talk about DEI. I don't know how that resonates with you who are listening. Thank you, Nancy, and anybody else that's tuning in. The experience, you mentioned something in the beginning of a safe space in the workplace. Go into a little more detail of feeling safe and emotionally stable at your workplace.
Right. In workspaces, a lot of times, and so in one of the ways that I support companies is surveying their landscape. And it's funny because the companies that want to survey, typically the ones that need to survey never ask me to survey. But a lot of companies that are really intentional about trying to do better for the people that work with and for them will spend some time every 5 years or so doing an employee survey. And there's a lot of isolation involved in being a person of color at a lot of organizations where they work. And the isolation comes in forms that people are not really considering. It's not like in the 60s or 50s where I say there were few women bathrooms, but it may show up when all of the happy hours after work, go to the country music fair every time, and it never rotates to do anything different. And so you wind up feeling like the same thing that, has been time immemorial, and things that tell my husband about is like you can show up, a Black business person, and show up for the meeting on Monday morning to try to get the client, not realizing that the deal was closed on Sunday afternoon at the golf course at the country club that doesn't let Black people in, right? So you're walking in Monday morning with the best presentation ever, but they have already figured this out when they were playing golf yesterday. And so that is why belonging at work is important for both clients and for people that are coming to you. Is what are we doing? What are we implementing in this space that makes and that's where the B really comes in, the belonging. What are we doing in this space that everybody feels like they're going to be able to come to work as their full and their whole selves? This is why the Crown Act was so important, because Black women, and you would, and that frankly, that's a diversity issue, right? Black women were feeling pressure and to conform physically in ways that was uncomfortable. And can you imagine having and this still exists in schools. Can you imagine a rule that is, if your child wears dreadlocks to school, they're going to be sent home?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And it's absolutely mind-boggling to me that's the things that we are having to quote unquote litigate or legislate. We had to legislate the equality of Black hair.
Yeah. I mean, that's legislating our own humanity.
That's right? Legislating our actual humanity. Yeah. Our actual humanity. And so when I think about women that are, you're coming into the workspace, or even a Black male. Can you imagine Black male walking in with full head of his natural God-given hair and being told that the look is intimidating or unneat, unkempt, and unclean? Right. These are the ways that belonging in the workplace matters.
So on the other hand, if I'm the company and I do have a certain look that the company brands as a look,
yeah.
I guess we're not talking about saggy jeans or any of those.
But
things.
yeah, I want everybody to look. The thing, like the thing I used to say to Alex Smith and stuff was like, I'm not anti-dress code.
Right.
I love a good dress code because if I'm gonna dress up and look nice, I want everybody to dress up and look nice. I'm against an inequitably applied dress code.
That is correct.
Absolutely. Okay, and so that's the same thing. So like at work, in a workplace, I'm okay if you want to set a standard and a tone in a company for appearance things that are actual things that are unrelated to my skin tone, my hair, my natural self. Right. I am fine if you decide that, Casual Friday is the only time that, we can be in jeans. That's fine. That's fine. I will not say this space because I worked at a local media company fresh out of college, and it was radio.
I want to say when the Afro wasn't. No, I'm just playing.
It was radio. And so radio people, you hear them, you don't see them when their work product is turned in. And so I came in and I started, the first couple of days I came to work, I was like, I was like really dressed up, right? And then I realized like nobody else was, right? Nobody else was because radio. I was like, oh. So I started to dress like I was the youngest, and I was the only Black person, and I was a summer. I still was in school, so I was a summer intern. Reporter. Yeah. Okay. So I started, but I did turn over my own stories and the whole nine. And so I looked at all the white women that worked there, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm dressed like them. And they had sort of like a non-uniform uniform of jeans, Birkenstocks, and t-shirts, and or sweatpants, Birkenstocks, and t-shirts. It all ended in Birkenstocks every time.
All right, I don't know what a Birkenstock is, so tell me, please.
It's a type of sandal. I wear them every day. I live in a hot climate.
See, all Black people don't know what a Birkenstock is, but anyway, keep going. Keep going. I never had them.
So I don't wear Birkenstocks, but I have flip-flops, right? So I was like, I'm just gonna do exactly what Susie's doing, my version of it. And so I started wearing like t-shirts and sweats and flip-flops. And my news director called me in his office one day and told me that my attire was distracting. And that the bottom line, which I now know was a Me Too moment, was simply that he was like, "You're too curvy. Wow. You are distracting. You are dressed inappropriately." And I was like, but Susie has on a t-shirt and I have on a t-shirt. Like, yep. I was like, but Susie got on sweatpants and I got on sweatpants. Yep. But Susie got on flip-flops and I got on flip-flops. Yep. What's the problem? You in it.
Mm.
And I was like absolutely devastated, but I just changed what I wore. And that meant that I'm coming to work now. I'm not able to be as free as they are to do their job, A.
Right.
And B, there was something about the way I literally showed up physically that was offensive.
Right.
Isn't that wild?
Right.
By the way,
did they get around the water cooler and get into that offense? This is Black People versus DEI, in case you just tuned in. How you doing, Byron, Jewel, Nancy, anybody else tuning in? If you're watching now live or on the replay, we have CEO from JRM Consultancy. She was also at the Black Business Matters conference down at the Reginald Lewis Museum.
which was amazing.
Which was amazing. You have to go back and look at. We're in a good space with this DEI. We can't even. This could actually be a part 2 because it's so much to cover. Because it's just been going on for so long, and it's companies that are pulling away from it because you said you feel like you're putting them in a headlock to make them do things that they don't want to do. The question is, nobody has to be sold anything that they don't want to buy, right? So I'm talking about even when you go into the store, may I help you? No, I'm just looking. Whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
They just want to be. They want to make a. You got to figure out, I guess, Robyn, that's probably what your company does, how to make it think like it's their idea.
That's a good thing. Yeah, absolutely. I do that all the time. I do that all the time. I'm really good at it because I do that with my husband. Like, he thinks this is his idea.
Is that how the pool got built?
That was mostly him.
Okay, all right. So he did that.
That was mostly his idea. It was mostly his idea. There you go. Right, exactly.
There you go. But no, so we, and some companies actually in this climate have actually acknowledged there are nonprofits who've been deeply affected by companies rolling back their DEI initiatives, right? Because there was a moment of let's throw money at the problem. Because one, they thought DEI was a problem they needed to solve, and two, they were checking a box. And they were not doing, and it was right. So I was talking to some nonprofit heads that were, like 5 years ago or 4 years ago in 2020, a major corporation had committed, we're committing $250,000 a year for the next 5 years to your efforts, because that helps us check a box and then you do the work. Which was great, but now they have shareholders and things, or they're just dealing with a politically polarizing environment. So they are no longer willing to commit those large amounts to organizations that are about upbuilding equitable practices and measures. And some of that is really detrimental because, for example, there's a nonprofit in that was about increasing Black home ownership. Right, which is a substantial and sustainable way to close the racial wealth gap.
Absolutely.
So you're a bank. You're invested in getting people to get loans because that's how you make your money. And at one point over the last 3 years, more Black home ownership was important because it looked good as a DEI measure. But now that it's challenging, you're willing to, as we talked about, as you said earlier, Jay, like cut your nose off to spite your face, and that you're gonna decrease the amount you give to educate people on home ownership because it looks like a DEI effort. When in reality, what you were doing, if you looked at it from a more sustainable method, is that you're increasing your customer base.
Right. Again, I don't understand that. It's like this idea of, if it does not turn results in 3 to 5 years, or sometimes in their thought process, 3 to 5 months, then is it really worth it? It's like, well, if you spend, let's say, like you said in your example, $250,000 a year, but you're gaining $4 or $5 million more a year,
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, but we're getting all these like pushback. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, if you're a corporation, your goal ultimately is to increase your bottom line. So, but it is so woven into, use your turn of phrase, it is so threaded into the fabric of their mindset that this diversity is ultimately detrimental and they don't want to do it. And it's like it's work and all this other stuff. It's like, it is, but the more you do it and the more you get comfortable with it, it no longer becomes work. It just becomes a part of running a company. Right.
Yeah.
And so like this idea of not doing it because like we're not seeing immediate results. Like, the system has been broken since forever. You have to do the work to kind of push yourself back into some sort of sense of normalcy.
It's very long and a very, sustainability is not going to be visible in 1 year. It's going to be visible in 10 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I think what you guys are doing, sort of setting the groundwork and giving these people or these corporations and these organizations the jumping off point or the sort of the platform to actually get themselves to what I would say is actual corporate responsibility and just sort of the humanistic perspective, I think is work that is needed all over the country. But I think corporate America has such a powerful influence over our daily lives in the US that if you don't start there, I don't think you get anywhere. Because ultimately, if you started like, oh, well, let's just, worry about people and government stuff and try to push up, corporations are always right there to say, well, we're not doing it. So then people can't get jobs and things like that. So I think your company and you very specifically are doing a massive service.
Thank you.
That I think should be noted.
Yeah. We
it's
try.
The boundary of corporate America. Huh? So, where do you draw the line? I mean, like, for instance, say you don't believe in gay marriage, right? Or the LGBTQ, however long that goes, doesn't resonate with you.
Yeah.
And what you value when you started the company, right? That doesn't mean that a person is not qualified. So how do you, because people have their minds made up. I don't care. Just like if I don't even know the name of the shoes you guys just said you wear, because I might never wear those, and you guys might love them, and they might be your favorite pair of shoes. But I can understand, I can say, oh, okay, I see why you love those shoes. So they're nice shoes. They're just not for me, right? So that's the kind of thing. Like, I see why you like to wear your hair like that. That's not my thing. But I can see why you like. When do you get to put yourself in the other person's shoes? Is that what you help them do, Robyn?
I do, but I want to start by saying, like, I love America. I love our country. I love the idea that my husband and I are from Edmondson Village in Baltimore. And I love the idea that today, I can live next door to a couple that chose to live here in the US and here in Baltimore and here in Reisterstown, Maryland, and are immigrants from Ghana. And that 2 doors down, they are from India. And then, I think that, and I love that we all don't think the same.
Beautiful.
I love that we all don't think the same. I was telling somebody the other day, I went to, there's a play, one of my clients is center stage, and I love the arts, and I'm big into the arts. And there was a play that was huge that everybody loved that I did not like. I did not like this play at all. And it was huge. It went to Broadway, Thoughts of a Colored Man. I did not like the play itself, because art is art, and I have a right not to like it. I went to see it another time with my husband and City Council President Nick Mosby. And they loved it. They loved everything about that play, because it actually was, and they're neither of those, I would not consider either one of them theater guys, but what they saw on that stage on that day in that play resonated with them because they saw themselves. And so they loved the play. And so the reason diversity of thought is important and is that I had like a 1 hour long debate, scene by scene, with Nick Mosby afterwards, where He loved it. I hated it. We talked about it, right? And that's what I think the thing is about. It's like, I love that you loved something I did not like. And you were able to talk to me about it. And I could see why you loved it.
Absolutely.
I still didn't like it because this is what I saw. So there, and so, but the thing about it is that, but the play still gets to exist. It gets to exist so that Robyn can say all the ways it didn't resonate with me, and that this guy can say all the ways that it mattered to him. And that's like the most important thing that I think we can learn from diversity of thought. And so, but like living in the United States of America, it kind of means that I can own Chick-fil-A and not open on Sundays because I'm a deeply religious person.
Right.
Like, do you know how annoying it is that Chick-fil-A refuses to open on Sundays?
Only when you forget.
Only when you forget to pull up.
Only when you pull up and say, "Oh yeah, it's Sunday." But
and imagine, like he's so deeply committed to that belief that airports don't even want businesses that won't be open on that seventh day. Airports run 7 days a week. Chick-fil-A says, I'm still coming. I'll take the hit.
Absolutely.
I'm not opening on a Sunday. Here's the thing, the reason I love America. Fine, Mr. Chick-fil-A. And he's also does not resonate with the LGBTQ community because he is anti-gay. There, as a personally held belief, not as a corporate belief, as a personally held belief, the owner of Chick-fil-A is very religious, does not like gay people.
However, no, I think it was he does not like gay marriage. I think.
No, it goes deeper than that. It actually goes.
I'm not going to defend him. I don't have a nickel in that dollar. But
right. But here's what I'll say. Here's the thing. Until it goes public, if Chick-fil-A ever goes public, then that changes their the way they show up in society. That's why a small individual baker can say, "I'm not doing your 2-topper male cake." Right. But can they exist in a place where they get a tax break? Maybe not. Right. So those are the ways, like that's and I like that we have to interrogate.
Well, that's kind of like the Afro, right? We do Black news. I mean, for the most part,
unapologetically,
right? For 132 years. So
I subscribe to a magazine that's strictly about travel.
Absolutely.
I can't force them tomorrow.
They don't want to do tech.
To say, well, you're discriminating against the tech industry. We do travel.
Right.
Afro does Black people. It's in the name.
Absolutely. Look, this conversation is we right at the hour. I respect everybody's time. I'm having a ball. If you just tuned into the Chicken Box, like and share with somebody. DEI is real, but I like the diversity of thought. I think if you take anything away. So let's just get on the box real quick. This is the final minute where we all get on the box and we speak our truth about the thing. So I'll start. Okay. I'm on the box now. So I learned a lot, and thank you for what you do in fighting for especially our people. I know you fight for everybody because you're a CEO, and if they got the check, you're gonna fight for whoever needs the fighting in that space. But just the diversity of thought, I think, is sometimes good to listen to a different music channel. I think it's different to watch a different show sometimes, just to see that it is more outside of your bubble. Outside of your four corners, and I grew up in West Baltimore too. It is more than North and Long. You know what I mean? It's more than Edmondson Village. It's more than But until you actually take the time to get outside of it, you really don't know. Because I lived in Ricestown too, and I didn't like the snakes in my house. But that was a whole different story. But it's the diversity of thought. And that, love really has no color, right? Love and compassion really has no color, and being kind doesn't really have, so when you think about when you exist with other people, now if you want to be a blogger and you a writer and you're in your office and you don't have to deal with anybody else, then you can deal and write everything. But when you have to deal with other people, you should at least do it in love. So your diversity of thought to me should be in some kind of loving manner, as if that person was in your family. And you might not want them in your family because of a stereotype that you may have put in your mind and your thought is wrong. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to stand on the diversity of thought today and just lead with love in your mannerism of how you deal with people, period. From the people in the hotel, the people that clean the rooms, they're not any different than the people in the C-suite. They just have chosen a different path. They're solving a different problem. So until you choose a problem like Robyn Murphy to solve, your money is going to be right here. But when you say, okay, I'm now going to choose this problem, your money changes. So I'm off the box. Jay Jackson, you are now officially on the chicken box. Final thought.
Okay. Look, I think that, as I mentioned earlier, I think, diversity, equity, inclusion is incredibly important. I think that we all need to make sure that we are listening to the most diverse voices. I think that's true in corporate America or in organizations. I think that's also true in life. To Impeccable's point, the world is bigger than your four corners. So you should make sure that you understand what is happening outside of that and outside of your sphere of influence, so to speak. That being said, I think that when you do that, you should also bring your own, your true self to those conversations, right? And that doesn't mean that listening to others and everything else needs to come at the expense of compromising yourself, right? But you do have to be open to other perspectives, because that's how we get better. You should be trying to get 1% better every day, as they say, right? So I think JRM Consultancy is doing just that from a sort of a corporate and organization perspective. And like I said, I think corporate America's influence is not necessarily the ceiling, but it's like right in the middle, right? It's really hard to move past that if you don't have to deal with corporate America. And the more we can sort of break down those kind of, or punch holes in that sort of ceiling that can happen when people are not of diverse thought, the better everyone does, right? This is not just a benefit to racial minorities or sexual orientation minorities or anything in between. It is good for everybody. Corporations lose a bunch of money. People they have blinders on the way they see the world and everything if they are not in truly diverse spaces, or at least open to that. So I would say let us all be open to perspectives that we do not currently hold. I think that's the best way I can say it. So I'll leave it to Robyn.
I just want to say, what difference does it make with who somebody sleeps with if they can do the job? Why are you all in there anyway? Why you care? What do you care if they wear football?
I agree.
Or not? Well, who cares? Can you deliver? This is graphic. This edit I need for this proposal. You all in the bedroom for what? Anyway, I'm gonna leave that alone. Okay, Robyn, you're on the box. Thank you for hanging out with us today.
I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you guys, and I appreciate the opportunity to hang out in the chicken box and claim my rightful place in the Murphy family.
You like salt, pepper, ketchup? What you like? Hot sauce? What you like on your chicken box?
Oh yeah, no. First of all, I meant to say I don't know where you go, because where I go, you get 5 wings. So I need the 5th wing.
I'm old. I'm old. It started with 4.
I need the 5th wing. Okay. Yeah. Oh no, I'm all in. I am salt, pepper, ketchup on my fries, salt and pepper, hot sauce, and sometimes seasonal on my wings.
That's what I'm talking about. Seasonal.
And definitely, I used to have a Pepsi or a half and half. I don't really drink sugary drinks anymore, but I used to always have to have. I would say you could tell if somebody is really from Baltimore by whether or not they order an Arnold Palmer or a half and half. You order an Arnold Palmer, you're not from.
No, you're not from Baltimore.
You're not from Baltimore. So yeah, I'm a good matter of fact. My daughter asked me to make some. She likes my homemade chicken boxes because I actually make them at home. So much I love them.
Absolutely.
There we go.
So briefly, just everything you guys said, like having an equitable playing field in your world and in the workplace actually ultimately allows you to breathe a little bit easier. Like everybody, like leveling the playing field. It's getting there is gritty work,
right?
And it's uncomfortable work, but being there is awesome.
You're just uncomfortable because you don't understand the other,
Yeah.
the other side. So that's what makes you scared to come into Baltimore, because you're listening to the mainstream news talk about all of the bad stories, which might only be 0.5% of what's happening in the Black community, but you're only listening to this 0.5%. And so you have already made your mind up about the Black community when the 99.5% is just thriving and being communal, right, and being amazing, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, I thank you very much. Jay Jackson, I appreciate hanging out with you. Robyn Murphy, and everybody else, thank you. Go to afro.com and keep us going for another 132 years. We need your money. It's a fact. That's why we can have good people, hire better people, and keep this legacy going on of being able to tell the good stories that happen in our community, because we already know who's telling the bad story. So until next time, don't forget, call a senior. Do not text a senior. Call your auntie, your grandma, your call them and say that you're thinking about them. I'm telling you, it's going to make their whole month. You might not have called them since Christmas, but it's time to just give them a call and smile. That makes everybody's day. I love that pool. Anyway, we coming to the pool party at the Murphy's house when I get the Jay Jackson. Everybody else, have a wonderful day. Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.